We're busy on our paper hangers trying to cover something. There's too much going on.
Yeah.
Just doesn't get everything.
Big small town.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Welcome to the Go Blue Missoula Prevention of Child Abuse movement for April. If anybody is a Bobcat here, this blue is not your color. I just want to make sure you knew that right now. What I'd like to do first, before anything, is if you're here because you believe child abuse is okay, raise your hand. That was your first test, you passed. Okay, the next thing I want you to do is repeat after me. 7, 2, 8. 8. Kids. 7, 2, 8 kids. 7, 2, 8 kids. 7, 2, 8 kids. Now, I want you to say, Go Blue Missoula. Go Blue Missoula. Go Blue Missoula. Okay, this is your next test. This half, I want you guys to say 7, 2, 8 kids. 7, 2, 8 kids. Ready? 7, 2, 8 kids. I want you to say, Go Blue Missoula. So when I point to you, Go Blue Missoula. Ready?
Go!
Blue Missoula.
7, 2, 8 kids.
Go!
Blue Missoula. Okay, now we're going to do this in rhythm. It's going to go 7, 2, 8 kids. Go Blue Missoula. 7, 2, 8 kids. Go Blue Missoula. Got it? Ready? Go.
7, 2, 8 kids.
Go Blue Missoula!
7, 2, 8 kids.
Go Blue Missoula!
So when you leave this place today, and you know that there's some issue out there in the world, maybe parenting, maybe you see a little abuse situation, maybe you think somebody could use a parenting class, or what we call an ACE training, adverse childhood experiences, which we have some great teachers here today. What number are you going to remember? If that is the only resource you leave with today, and you take it through the end of the month, and you use it again and again, we're going to be proud that you got the message that this is one of the CAP, Child Abuse Prevention Centers in Montana. And so with that, we would not exist unless we had what's called the Exchange Club. And if you were an Exchange Club member, would you please raise your hand? Look around. We're here. The parenting place is here because of the Exchange Club. The Pinwheels for Prevention started with the Exchange Club on a national basis. And so the pinwheels that you'll be seeing around town, there's 10,000 of them that we want to get out. When you see them, it should represent a positive experience for a child. Hope. Something that when you see this, it's a multi-pronged approach for a community to engage in prevention and strengthening families. So today, when you hear the speakers, each of them have a different perspective that they're coming from. And so I encourage you at the end of this kickoff today to grab one of them or go over to the table. There's some resources. Utilize those. We've got our speakers today is Teresa Nygaard, who is with the Parenting Place, Executive Director. Of course, our Mayor Engen, and I don't really have to explain him, except I don't have a scissor left. Leslie Halligan, who is a judge here, and Bart Klicka with the Social Work Department at the University of Montana. They'll get a chance to explain a little bit more what they do and their focus coming up. We want to thank everybody who has touched this in some way. There's some partners out there, Families First. If you have touched this prevention movement as an organization, or as a business or individual, you raise your hand. And thank you all. Thank you all for being here today. So with that, I am going to pass on the mic to Teresa Nygaard, who is the mother of our Parenting Place and does a terrific job. We love her, and I can't wait to hear what she has to say today for you. Welcome, Teresa Nygaard.
Well, thank you, Gina. I like to be just as surprised as everybody else, so as many notes as I have, those are usually what I don't use. I want to say, first of all, that I'm really, really happy to see more people out this year than there were out last year. We had just a few people here in attendance last year, but as every event goes, it just gets bigger and better every year. So thanks for participating. The other thing that I'd like to share with you is that over the past year or so, we've seen just a higher level of collaboration with the folks who are pulling together in our community to provide services for families and their children. And ours is not the only organization in our community that does the kind of work that we do. There are other programs that provide services that are similar. There are other programs that provide services that have different requirements for services. Fortunately, I think for the Parenting Place, we've always filled a niche where we have very few requirements that people must meet in order to enroll in our programs. And as some of you know and some of you don't know, we've been providing services through the Parenting Place for the last 35 years in Missoula. And that's looked different over the years. We've evolved just like everyone else has. I think we started out just providing parenting classes, and those look different then than they do today. The other thing that I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention to this group is that we're in sort of a transformational period where we are taking into account a lot more information that we have concerning brain development when we think about the kind of work that we do and the services that we provide. What do I mean by that? How many of you have heard of Adverse Childhood Experiences Study? Oh my gosh, look at the hands. I thought no one. We have a couple folks over here that just went through a training. Lorraine back there just provided a training this morning for the police department or the sheriff's department. And so we are really getting the information out there concerning the kinds of things that happen as far as brain development goes when a child has suffered abuse and neglect in their first 18 years. We like to refer to the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study as the ACE study. So when you hear us say ACE, that's what we're talking about. So with that information, what I'll just tell you is that our community has sort of come together and started talking about this in a community way about how we can implement services based on the knowledge that we now have, scientific knowledge about brain development. And as an example, I want to just say that if you have two children who are raised with varying backgrounds, one comes from a very loving, nurturing home, and one that comes from a home that is not loving and nurturing, you have the possibility that two brains will be wired very differently. Does that make sense? And we've always known that this might be the case, but we're finding scientific evidence now that proves that those children born into homes where they are wired for a more dangerous, unstable world are having trouble when they get out into the community, because our societal expectations don't change depending on your background, do they? They are the same for all of us, regardless of our backgrounds. So that's where we see the trouble start, and that's where a lot of our programs actually take action. We're providing services not only from our location in town here, but we're going into the pre-release center and to the jail to teach parenting education. So we feel like we're really on cutting edge ground here, and I know I want to call attention to a few programs. How many programs out there do we have that are providing services to families and children? Raise your hand. Look at all those hands up in the back. It's funny, all of our social service folks are in the back of the room. You need to come forward, people. So these are our partners. We partner with anybody in the community who has the same kind of focus that we do, because we know that it takes a village. And we have a strong village here in Missoula, and we have a wise village. I think that we can come up with some really great solutions for helping and supporting families and their children by coming together and brainstorming what are some of the solutions that we can bring to the table, and how can we work better together to weave maybe a stronger safety net so that fewer families and fewer children fall through the cracks. I'm going to stop there because I get a chance to talk to you again at the very end to wrap up. But before I introduce our mayor, I just want to say, Mayor Engen, you are very, very progressive, because as we are just talking now about adverse childhood experiences in a community way, I think when we asked you to be part of our video, when we did our very first video as the Parenting Place program about 8 years ago, you very graciously said yes, you would be involved. You came to talk to us about what you saw our program doing and how you saw us making a difference in the community. And a sentence that you said really stuck with me all these years. And we're talking about ACEs now as a community. You were talking about ACEs 8 years ago. So very, very progressive. That one thing that you said was, as a community, we need to be careful that we're not medicating and incarcerating people who just needed help growing up. And you're right. Thank you for that, Mayor Engen.
Just so you guys know too, before Mayor Engen, there is a little drink out there. It's called the Blue Missoula that the Liquid Planet has put together for us this month for April awareness. So every time you go get a Blue Missoula at Liquid Planet, they will donate $1 to our cause. So thanks, Liquid Planet. Here's Mayor Engen.
Thank you very much, Gina. And thank you, Teresa. I wish that I remembered when I said things like that. I must have Googled it before I gave the remark. I will be mercifully brief, ladies and gentlemen, on this lovely day, and simply proclaim, as I'm wont to do, and that is, whereas Montana has 220,000 children who count on us to protect them and to help them grow into the healthy, happy, productive people they're meant to be, and whereas exposure to extreme and sustained stress, like child abuse and neglect, indifference, and violence, can devastate a child's development, and whereas child abuse prevention is a community responsibility, and finding solutions depends on involvement among all people, and whereas communities must make every effort to promote programs that benefit children and their families, and whereas investing in strengthening families is investing in community and economic development, because flourishing families are the foundation of a thriving society and children's well-being, and whereas preventing child abuse means stopping it before it starts. And this is a quote from Frederick Douglass: "It is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men." Now therefore, I, John Engen, Mayor of the City of Missoula and the State of Montana, do hereby proclaim the month of April, which is now, 2016, in Missoula, Montana, as Child Abuse Prevention Awareness Month. And I want to thank everyone who is involved in this great effort, because it really is about taking care of kids early so that we don't have to take care of adults later in ways that we don't want to. So thank you all for your tremendous efforts. Gina will now sing.
No. That was nice. Okay, so thank you, Mayor Engen. It was very nice to have you up here, and appreciate your participation and support in this movement. I also see, did I see Susan out here? Hey, Patrick from United Way. There she is. Thank you for your support in getting people rounded up as well. TJ, you see the Exchange Club. We see Jerry Delley's out there from CASA. Families First. We've got a lot of groups out here, so thank you for being here. Some of us are working on the preventative side, some of us are working on the reintegration side, so the fact that we're all here for kids is like the biggest, greatest thing, isn't it? The best investment in this world could be a kid. All right, so our next speaker we'd like to welcome is Bart Klicka from the University of Montana, and he's got some tremendous background in studying this. Love to hear what he has to say with statistics, and he promised that it wouldn't be all negative, that it would be pretty positive. So we're having Mr. Bart Klicka.
Thanks for having me today. So I'm sure that everyone here can remember a time when as children, you would crawl around the back seat of your parents' car as you were driving down the road. I've even heard people talk about how they used to sit in the window in the back of their family's station wagon and waved at cars as they were sort of approaching from behind. To transpose that memory, with a couple weeks ago, I'm pulling up to my driveway at my house. I'm with my daughter Lucy here. And before I came to a complete stop, I unbuckled my seatbelt in preparation to get out of the car. And I heard a little voice from the back saying, "But Daddy, we're supposed to wear our seatbelt while the car is moving." So I sort of chuckled to myself and I walk around the car seat and undo my daughter Lucy from her 5-point NASA-approved harness. So clearly times have changed. Lucy can't fathom a time when seatbelt use wasn't the actual norm. I look forward to the day when we think about child abuse in the same way that we think about seatbelt use. It's my hope that future generations will have to explain to them that child abuse and neglect was actually once a real thing. I've dedicated my career to understanding and researching the prevention of child abuse and neglect. When I say the prevention, I mean stopping it so that no child ever experiences abuse or neglect. It's a lofty goal, I realize, but let's think of things such as smallpox or polio. At one time, these seemed like insurmountable problems with absolutely no cure in sight. Today, we know that problems like smallpox and polio are the exception rather than the rule. But we have our work cut out for us. Our most recent statistics from 2014 tell us that over 700,000 children in the United States were victims of child abuse and neglect. Over 1,200 of those were here in the state of Montana. At the same time, we know that not all children who are abused and neglected come to the attention of official reporting agencies. So we know that there's many children out there who are being abused and neglected but are suffering silently. Sometimes when children are abused and neglected, they're placed in what we call the foster care system. Nationally, over 400,000 children are currently in the foster care system, upwards of 3,000 of those children here in the state of Montana. In Missoula County, we've seen an over 100% increase in children in the foster care system since 2011. These children who enter the foster care system have increased rates of physical health problems, emotional problems, behavioral problems, and developmental delays. We're trying our best with programs like the Missoula Foster Child Health Program to help these children address these needs and navigate the foster care system, but more efforts are needed to move upstream to make the need for a foster care system unnecessary. So when people hear about social problems, they often ask themselves, so how does this problem impact me? So many people out in the audience, maybe you've experienced abuse and neglect in your early life. Maybe you have children who go to school where kids in the school are currently victims of child abuse and neglect. Without a doubt, many of our tax dollars are being spent on providing the services for the kids who experience abuse and neglect. A side note, for every child that experiences abuse and neglect, it's estimated that they incur a lifetime cost of approximately $210,000 to treat the consequences of abuse and neglect. We've all been impacted by abuse and neglect, and therefore all have a responsibility in its prevention. Not all of us can or are willing to work directly with children and families like Teresa and her staff at the parenting place. I'm here to say that many of you are actually already doing things to contribute to a larger strategy to prevent child abuse and neglect. So let me ask you, do you work with kids and families? Have you ever babysat for a friend, a neighbor, a family member who was maybe feeling stressed out? Have you ever donated time, money, or goods to an organization that provides services to children and families? Have you ever supported legislation such as paid family leave? These are all ways in which we can contribute to the prevention of child abuse and neglect by decreasing the stresses and burdens that are placed upon families. I like to call this your dot. Our charge is to move forward and to connect our dots to create a web of support for families in need. So I suggest share your dot with others. Encourage others to define their dot. Together, we can make child abuse an anomaly, much like the child crawling around the backseat of a moving car. Thank you.
Thank you, Bart. One more announcement before our next superstar comes up here is in a little while, our health-conscious mayor is going to take us for a loop to Higgins and back. We're going to get our pinwheels, and we'll go down to Higgins, loop around, and come back to the yard. And Mary Angan, no sprinting this time, please. You didn't hear that. Anyway, our next speaker is Leslie Helligan, a judge here, and I was so excited for her to say yes when I asked her to come and speak today, because I can't tell you how many wonderful, positive feedback information pieces I've received from her. And so now I get to put a face with a name, and she has been very active in this movement for years, from what I understand. So please give her a big welcome, Leslie Helligan.
So welcome to everyone. During the month of April, we gather to voice the importance of child abuse prevention. As noted by Martin Luther King Jr., our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. Child abuse prevention matters. The beautiful pinwheels that you all are carrying and that decorate our lawn on the courthouse represent the joy and hope of children and the joy that they bring to our lives and our communities. The blue pinwheels also represent our efforts to change the way our nation thinks about prevention and to focus on community activities and public policies that prioritize prevention efforts. Our Montana children, however, like children across the nation, are not immune from abuse and neglect, and we too must focus on advocacy and programs to prevent child abuse and neglect. As a district court judge, I'm keenly aware of the impacts of abuse and neglect on children and their families. Unfortunately, our Montana courts have experienced significant increases in the numbers of child abuse and neglect cases, especially in the last year. In 2014, across Montana, 1,600 cases of child abuse and neglect were filed in district courts. In 2015, these cases increased to 2,321. In comparison, in 2009, Montana courts were involved in approximately 1,000 cases, less than half of the current filings. For Missoula courts, and here in Missoula, cases have increased from 162 in 2014 to 216 in 2015. And in comparison, in the years of 09, 10, and 11, annually, we saw about 80 cases of child abuse and neglect. Given these increases, Missoula courts have been unable to close cases at the same rate that cases are opened. And at the end of 2015, our judges, our 4 district court judges, were presiding over 280 open child abuse and neglect cases. Why are we experiencing these increases? Of course, there's no easy answer, as many factors contribute to child abuse and neglect. However, child abuse is most likely to occur when parents struggle with stress, the pressures of money problems, everyday frustrations, illness, or heavy responsibilities, perhaps their own painful childhood. Adults who were mistreated as children may, without meaning to, continue the pattern of abuse with their own children. Adults who experience intimate partner violence often expose their children as well to violence. Alcohol or drugs can blind a parent to the child's needs, causing neglect. or may reduce inhibitions and tolerance levels so that parents may be more likely to lash out at their children. Isolation, inexperience with children, or unrealistic expectations. If parents don't know what to expect from their children, they may expect too much. Besides lacking the parenting skills necessary to raise a child, parents may have no models of successful family relationships from which to learn. Immaturity. We have very young and insecure parents that don't understand their child's behavior or needs. And lastly, emotional needs. Parents may expect children to take care of them and to satisfy their need for love, protection, and self-esteem. In Montana, 1 out of every 5 children live in poverty. 30% live in single-parent homes, and 19% of families have experienced food insecurity. Of Montana children in 2012 who experienced maltreatment, 88% of those children experienced neglect. 14% suffered physical abuse, 7% experienced emotional abuse, 5% were subject to sexual abuse, and 1% experienced medical neglect. On average, 30% of our children have experienced 2 or more adverse childhood experiences. This percentage is 60% for Native American children. Younger children, of course, are at greater risk for abuse and neglect. In Montana, 44% of the abused and neglected children are under the age of 5. 34% are ages 5 through 10. Certainly, we have experienced a large increase in the reports of methamphetamine use by parents and exposure of methamphetamine to children. Parental involvement with methamphetamine also often requires months of treatment and may result in criminal charges and incarceration. Can child abuse be prevented? Prevention really is the only cure for child abuse and neglect. Through family education and support programs, the vicious and tragic cycle of abuse can be stopped. What can you do? Help parents learn to raise and nurture their children without physical or emotional harm. This can be done through support groups and parenting programs and through public awareness campaigns like ours today. Train teachers, daycare workers, doctors, and other professionals about how to prevent abuse and how to recognize and treat abuse when it occurs. Support programs, support laws and programs, and the very many nonprofit organizations that we cherish in Missoula to educate families and protect children from the pain of abuse and neglect. Enhance community supports for families and improve access to adequate housing, health care, and social services. If you're willing, please serve as a mentor or role model to parents in need of support. And lastly, report abuse. It may be an important first step to the protection of our children. Child abuse prevention matters. Please take advantage of the opportunities provided this April and become better educated on how you individually can help prevent child abuse. Volunteer your time and your resources to help provide security, stability, and hope for our children and their families. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Leslie Halligan, who's a judge. I just want to make sure she was mentioning something about, making sure that you utilize the prevention resources. So I'm just going to test you from the beginning. When we started this kickoff, 728, 728, Go Blue Missoula, 728 kids. If you leave this kickoff and you go through the month of April and you think, we just went through this month of April and I learned something, but what am I doing with this? I'm just going to tell you as a community member, I took the ACEs training with Teresa and I learned what flipping your lid means now. Does anybody know what that means? If you do, raise your hand. So we've learned about this frontal cortex and the elevated state of a child's mind and learning when they're in a classroom versus a child who is relaxed next to them, and all of the tragedies that might happen to a child in learning. I have to share this because I think this is part of the awareness, being able to share something you just learned. I love neurology, and so it was neat to say, if Johnny is sitting next to Bobby, and Johnny comes from a heightened state environment, into a classroom, and his neighbor next door seems to be learning a lot quicker than he. Is his neighbor stupid? No, but maybe he's in a different frame of mind to learn. And so what I've been able to learn in this class is, just how do you create a new environment for a child to thrive? And it could be in the classroom, it could be at your dinner table, it could be out in public, it could be an encouraging word to a parent that you might see having a hard time with their child, and you go up and compliment them about something good that you see. So anyway, I thank Teresa for stepping out and teaching these ACES classes. And if you are interested in taking one as a community member, or somebody who's dealing with children, a teacher, the schools are really on board with this right now, go over to the table. There's resources there, but 7 to 8 kids will get you connected. Okay, so here we have Teresa again. Thank you.
You'd think I had something to do with the lineup or something. I just wanted to share one last thing, and Gina touched on it just a bit. Sometimes we leave these events having some good information and being able to recite a few statistics. If you can, I kept mine statistic lists because I didn't want your heads to explode. It's a lot of information to take in. But if there are some things that you can immediately do when you leave here and then practice, I thought I would share with you some very simple ways that you can support families and children without doing too much more than you normally do on a daily basis. Can everybody smile? I love it. See, everybody can smile, and that's one of the things that we know about adverse childhood experiences is kids are looking for receptive people. Kids are looking for approval, and kids are looking for positive emotional responses from their adults. So what we want to do is we want to provide that for them. Just like that. What we want to do, how many of you have seen a negative interaction with a parent and child in a store? Anybody? Unfortunately. So that's my training ground, so to speak. People actually know me in the stores and they start running the other way because they don't want me to intervene. But I always take the opportunity, and it's not always negative interactions. I have been known to walk up to a parent and child and say, wow, you're really, using very positive language with your 2-year-old. People enjoy hearing that. And I think the other thing that people enjoy is a distraction from the stresses and the things that happen in that 24-hour parenting stress that comes over you. If you're in a store, sometimes you need a distraction. Just walking up to somebody and saying, wow, that age is pretty hard, luckily it doesn't last forever, can be enough to distract them and help them for the rest of the day. So practice that. Go to the stores until they don't want you to come to the stores anymore. With that, I want to say thank you to everybody. You've all been just wonderful to come out and share this with us today. The pinwheel is a symbol of a happy, healthy childhood that every single child deserves, and we want every single child to have. So take your pinwheels, spread the awareness, share something you learned today, and say thank you to a few of our programs that are here giving out information. I know our staff is so hardworking every day, and I know the other programs have hardworking staffs that do just 100%, 110% for families in our community. So thank you to all of you who do what you do for families and children. Thank you.
So before we go for a walk with Mayor Engen, I wanted to bring the junior board up, but I see they're already here. And if you would look, there's some folks in the back that have 50-50 tickets, and they have raffle tickets. Adair Jewelers has provided a Montana Sapphire, a blue Montana Sapphire, to honor the April Go Blue Missoula awareness. And there's some other nice raffle items. If you would raise your hand, come up front, or raise your hand. There's 50-50 tickets, and the raffles are back here. You'll see them on the way out, so be sure to get your opportunity on that. We're going to be having a drawing on the 29th of April, so $5 a ticket. It's a pretty good deal. There's a few other items. pinwheel. There will be a pinwheel Afghan that was made by Martha's Ministries. So try your, take a shot at it and see what you can do. We also have our president here from the Parenting Place, who has really stepped our leadership up here this year into some action, and I'm just going to give her the mic. She's here. Karen Cassens.
Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you to Gina Haig for all her work on this April awareness campaign on behalf of the full board and on behalf of the junior board. So we have some flowers here for you. And I also want to thank Teresa Nygaard for her work and support of healthy families 365 days a year. Teresa? Oh, there you go. We have some flowers for you too. Thanks so much. And thank you so much for all the speakers to come out today and just promote healthy families. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, Mayor, you are in the lead. Follow this guy. He's going to take a loop to Higgins around the building and come back. So we will all be here. So Junior Board is going to join Mayor Engen. Thank you all for coming. And, excuse me, what? Marilyn over here has the 50-50 tickets if you're interested. The announcement of the winners will be on the 29th of April.
Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you. Thank you, Marilyn. Oh, it's all good. Appreciate it. Thank you.